Okay.
Well, hi everybody, Doug Wardlow running for Attorney General. Great to be speaking with you here. Very excited about the race for Attorney General. We're going to take on Keith Ellison, we're going to defeat him, and we're going to restore law and order in our state. There's so much work that we need to do when we take back the office of the Attorney General. And I'm the best candidate to do that work because I've got experience as a constitutional lawyer. I've been fighting for our constitutional rights my entire legal career. I was an attorney at Alliance Defending Freedom. That's a Christian legal ministry that fights for free speech and for religious liberty and for life in cases all across the country. So I've got that deep constitutional litigation experience. And I've got experience fighting for just compensation for property owners whose land is taken by the government. And I've got a lot of other litigation experience as well. So we're going to be able to get into the office of the Attorney General, take that office over, and start taking the bold action necessary on day one to save our state. And that's very important. I'm also general counsel for MyPillow. In that role, I'm standing up for with Mike Lindell and with MyPillow against Dominion voting systems. And we're standing up for the principle that under the First Amendment, every Minnesotan, every American has the right to speak our minds on matters of public concern like election integrity without being silenced or threatened by the government or by agents of the government who count the ballots like Dominion voting systems. So you know that when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to prioritize election integrity because it's absolutely critical that we have secure elections in our state. So as a constitutional lawyer, as a general counsel for a large Minnesota company, I've got the litigation management experience to get into the office and manage that office of 150 attorneys and make sure that everyone is pulling oars and moving all in the same direction, taking the bold action needed to save our state. And that starts with restoring law and order. We are going to make sure that all of our county attorneys have all the resources that they could possibly need to prosecute criminals aggressively and put criminals behind bars. We're going to make sure that law breaking in the state of Minnesota has consequences once again, and that's critically important. We're also going to stand up for our constitutional rights. Whether you're talking about parental rights to direct the education and upbringing of our children, or free speech, or religious liberty, or the Second Amendment, I will be there to intervene in cases, to bring cases on behalf of the state, or to file a friend of the court briefs as necessary to make sure that our constitutional rights are restored and vindicated. And we're going to stand up for medical freedom as well. It's critically important that everyone have the right to decide what kind of treatments that they're going to take, and no one should be forced to take a vaccine by the government that violates our constitutional rights. So there are a lot of priorities that we need to work on as Attorney General. And for respect to election integrity, we've got to secure our elections, and that means investigating and prosecuting voter fraud. We're going to send the message that if you commit voter fraud in the state of Minnesota, you will go to jail. By putting people in prison if they attempt to rig our elections, that's how we're going to secure our elections, change behaviors, and make sure that our elections in Minnesota are clean so that everyone can have 100% confidence that our votes are being counted accurately and that the right people are getting elected. The people that get the most votes are actually elected and put into office. Critically important. I've been working on that kind of work, election integrity, with Mike Lindell, and been working on that for a long time. So I'm already working on that. You can trust that I'll continue that work when I'm Attorney General. So this is such a critical election. We've got to save our state. We've got to take measures quickly, and we've got a team of lawyers already selected, and they're building plans so that we can hit the ground running on day one and do those things, stand up for our constitutional rights, and make sure that we're restoring law and order, supporting law enforcement. The best way to support law enforcement is to stop the cycle of arrest and release, because the officers are demoralized when they see the same people out on the street that they just arrested days or weeks or short months earlier. That's demoralizing, and it hurts officer recruitment and retention. So we can support retention, recruitment, and increase staff levels by prosecuting criminals aggressively, supporting the morale police, and then we'll use the bully pulpit of the AG's office to send the clear and unmistakable message that the office of the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota supports and respects and honors those who wear the badge and risk their lives daily to protect us and to deliver justice to crime victims. So incredibly important work that we're looking to do at the office of the Attorney General. I came very close to winning in 2018 within about 3.5%. And we got more votes than any Republican candidate has ever won in a midterm election in the history of the state of Minnesota, and that's for any office. So we built a strong base. Now we have a plan to win that's based on lessons learned and real experience from last cycle. And now the political winds are at our backs. The cycle is much better. Last cycle was a very difficult cycle. Now we're in a very good political cycle with our improved plan. We're reaching out into diverse ethnic communities, and we've got the Hmong American Leadership Council endorsement. We're building relationships in the Hmong community and in all sorts of diverse ethnic communities where the Democrats have traditionally dominated. So we're bringing Democrat votes over the Republican side. It's very exciting. We're going to win this thing. We will score an historic victory for the cause of liberty, the rule of law, and the Constitution. So ask for your support. Doug Wardlow, run for Attorney General. Thank you.
Doug, I'd like to ask you a couple really important questions. I have been saying to everybody, if we can have another honest election, I've been an election judge for 50-some years. Where do you see this next election in the fall, unless we get rid of those voting machines? Where do you see us going?
Well, we are working on that problem now, working to move back to paper ballots, and that's a priority. And I think once we start investigating and prosecuting voter fraud, getting to the bottom of what happened and what has been going on in Minnesota for a while, and we can take that evidence and we can, to the extent we're able, bring it over to the legislature and help them pass important election law reforms, right? So voter ID and provisional balloting and things of those nature to really secure our elections. So that's the important work that I'll do as Attorney General. Now, in the run-up to this next election, we're doing a lot of work trying to recruit more election judges. And we saw that in Virginia, where they had 92% of the election, Republican election judge and poll watcher positions filled, and everybody stayed late until all the calling was done. They were able to secure victories in the governor's race there, and also the Attorney General candidate there defeated a two-term Democrat incumbent. So just by having more election judges and eyes on ballots, we will be able to reduce the amount of fraud, and then we can overwhelm it with turnout. That way we then get into office and investigate and prosecute and really clean things up at that point. So that's the strategy, and it's looking very good, and we're working on getting rid of the machines as well.
One other question that concerns me as a constitutionalist. What is your opinion on the Constitutional Convention? There's so many big names pushing for it.
The Constitutional Convention of the Convention of States?
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, the Convention of States, well, that won't be anything that would deal with as Attorney General, and leave that to others to figure out. But, I think right now my focus has been my whole legal career is fighting for our constitutional rights. I've been an attorney in Alliance Defending Freedom, like I said, and standing up for the First Amendment, standing up for the Second Amendment, standing up for life, and standing up for all the liberties that are in our Constitution. I think it's important that we do that critical work and make sure that we are focused on that. And as Attorney General, that's what I'm going to focus on, standing up for constitutional rights. So standing up for medical freedom, standing up for the right of parents to direct the upbringing and education of their children, because parents are the primary educators of their children. So focusing on those constitutional rights, vindicating and restoring our state and federal constitutional rights.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I know it's limited, so appreciate
it.
Coming here.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Attorney General, we're going to make crime illegal again. By way of background, I've spent the last 11 years as a district court judge. I've handled both criminal cases and civil cases. That gives me the ability to do the job from day one. I also have had experience running for election in the suburban area, and we've won 10 elections, so I believe I am the strongest candidate to take on Keith Ellison and take the state back. The Office of Attorney General is very important in Minnesota. It's the chief law enforcement office in the state. We're going to depoliticize it. It has become hyper-political with Keith Ellison as our Attorney General. And what we're going to do is we are going to make crime illegal again. I'm going to work with the county attorneys to make sure crime is fully prosecuted, particularly violent offenses. Secondly, we're going to take out any attorneys that are planted by Michael Bloomberg or his foundations in the Attorney General's office. They're not at all accountable to the taxpayers of Minnesota. And we need to make sure that the attorneys in the Attorney General's office are working for the people of Minnesota. We're going to regulate nonprofits, such as Feeding Our Future, which has wasted hundreds of millions of dollars. And we need to get a handle on that for the taxpayers of Minnesota. And we're going to bring election integrity back to our elections. We're going to have a division that's dedicated exclusively to election integrity. But I need your help. I need your vote, and I'd appreciate your consideration. Again, my name is Tad Jude. I'm running for Attorney General.
Tad, I have a question or two for you. We had a bad election, and I'd like to know what you are doing or what is being done to make sure we have an honest election this time, because we can have all of the elections we want, but if it's stolen like it was last time, we've been wasting a lot of time. So what are your suggestions?
One of the things that Keith Ellison did as Attorney General was enter into a consent decree that got rid of a lot of the requirements on absentee ballots. We're going to have all the requirements of law reinstated for absentee ballots. We're going to try to narrow the window that people vote in. You've got 45 days right now around the election where people can vote. That has to be narrowed. In fact, in the last election, one of the candidates actually died in the 2nd Congressional District. So you had people voting for candidates that weren't even eligible when they were counting the votes. And what we're also going to do is have hopefully provisional ballots, so that if there are questions about ballots, they can be looked at and all the questions answered before they're counted, so that people have confidence that the right votes are being counted by people who are eligible to vote. And then we're also going to have voter ID, where people would just simply show their driver's license or other government ID in order to vote. And I will do everything possible to prosecute election fraud and any violation of election laws. If the county attorneys aren't doing it, I'm going to have the Attorney General's office prosecute those cases to the full extent of the law.
You know, Ted, I've been in the election judge arena for at least 45, 50 years. I've kind of lost count. But we used to use those machines where you would pull the tab down in the city of Duluth. In the township, when I was the clerk, we did hand ballots.
Yeah.
There's no fraud in a hand ballot. So what is your thoughts on getting rid of the machines so we have an honest election this time?
I support getting away from electronic machines, and if you remembered the little lever machines in the city of Duluth, those machines historically had problems.
Oh.
And that's where the whole term machine politics comes from.
Oh.
Because
Okay.
machine politics meant that people could tamper with those machines. And they've got stories that go back to Tammany Hall in New York City where they would rig all the machines. And this is history.
Interesting.
But that's where the term machine politics comes from. It's the problems you can have with the electronic machines. And now that we live in an internet age, the problems are confounded. They're just compounded. They're compounded and they go beyond what we've ever seen in the past. The past was bad enough, but it's gotten worse with electronic voting machines.
Here I didn't know I was a part of the problem, but I thought that was safe. So what is the answer for this election coming up? Because they're still probably going to be using the machines unless there is a way to stop them and use paper ballots this time. Is there any move afoot that you're aware of that's going to go to paper ballots and voter ID?
I think it's a battle that's going to have to be really taken year after year to tighten up so that people have confidence in the election results. And it will take year after year of us trying to make sure that election returns are counted openly and fairly and transparently. And have as much transparency as possible.
So there's not a chance then of those machines being eliminated before this coming election?
I wouldn't say that there's no chance of that, but I'd say the likelihood is very, very slim. It's very slim that would get rid of the machines before this next election. I think it would require some type of court case where they'd be thrown out.
Okay.
And I haven't seen that foundation laid at this point.
I see. Okay. Well, I appreciate your many years in the justice system and your work throughout the years, and so thank you very much for coming.
We're going to make it fair. We're going to make it a fair system.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, God bless you.
Be running for governor here in the state of Minnesota. Just a little bit about myself. I never thought I'd be running. I actually started my career out in law enforcement, had a back injury which took me out of that profession a number of years ago. Been a small business owner ever since. My wife and I live in the city of Lexington, where I'm the mayor of. We have a beautiful daughter named Eleanor. She's 2 years old, so we're fighting to rebuild our country and our state to make sure that our children have a future that we grew up in as older adults. And this election's about our faith, our family, our freedoms, and restoring what the United States and the state of Minnesota was.
So, tell us a little bit about your work as a mayor in Lexington, is that what you say?
Yeah, Lexington's in Anoka County by Blaine and Lino Lakes. We're not a very big city, but we get a lot of stuff done. We still have to face the Met Council, which is a big Twin Cities organization. We're surrounded by bigger cities too as well, so it's not just like we're out in the rural Minnesota area. We're a smaller city kind of sandwiched in between all the big cities. So we still have to face all the big problems that a Blaine or Lino Lakes or Shoreview or any of those other big populous cities have to deal with. We are the only Second Amendment sanctuary city in the Twin Cities area, protecting your Second Amendment constitutional rights by not enforcing, mandates or laws that might come down from state or federal. We're the only health freedom sanctuary city in the entire state of Minnesota, free of all COVID mandates, forced vaccinations. We never had masks on our children in school. We're standing up for your medical rights to choose whether or not you should be vaccinated, either with the COVID vaccine or any other sort of vaccine or medication that the government might force upon you. We have very low taxes. We've reduced our spending, supported our law enforcement. All of these things we have accomplished, even having a moderate or a liberal council. We are able to do it because it's about doing the right thing for your community. That's one of the greatest things I've learned as being mayor, is that we have to stand up and support our constituents, be there, because when you're a locally elected official, you have to be responsible to your community. You have your council meetings on the first and Thursday of each month, and they will come find you, right? Unlike House of Representatives or senators, they get to hide in their offices. And when you're locally elected, you learn how to be responsible to the people in the local community. And that's why I feel like I'll be a good governor, because I understand the needs of the people and I'll listen.
How long have you been the mayor there?
Been elected since 2016.
So you've got a few years behind you.
Yes,
And
a few years.
what do you feel? What is your opinion about elections now in the future with all of the corruption and packing the ballot?
Yeah, we have to have safe and secure elections. I mean, we all agree on the talking points: voter ID, cleaning the voter rolls, doing all the things that are common sense. We have an election season in Minnesota, 47 days. We have to get that back to election day as close as possible. Limit the amount of absentee ballots that can actually go out that way, because absentee ballots are ripe for fraud. But the machines are the problem. Technology has always been the issue. The machines themselves work fine, right? It's the way they're programmed by the people, which is, we've seen time and time again, the election fraud happens in the machines. So we're going to have to go back to paper ballots until we can find a different process and rebuild trust in our election systems again. The machines are hackable. We found Wi-Fi cards in them, and data being switched back and forth. It's just nonsense. You cannot trust the electronics when the electronics can be controlled.
Do you think paper ballots will be a potential possibility for this coming election?
As for the 2022 election, I wish they would be a potential. We can go to optical scanners, which have no ability to be connected to the internet, but with the Democrats still being in control of the state, I don't see a path forward for paper balloting to occur this year in Minnesota, unfortunately.
So what do you think are your biggest challenges should you be elected?
Well, it's obviously getting through all the bureaucrats in the swamp in St. Paul, but I am not bought and paid for or controlled by anybody. I've taken no money from millionaires, billionaires, lobbyists, special interest groups, power brokers. This election's about the people, so I owe no favors to anybody. So I'm going to go into this office completely uncontrolled. We're going to reform the state of Minnesota. I will appoint commissioners into office that will start reducing the size and scope of government, lay off the swamp bureaucrat creatures that have been there forever, and starting to hold Minnesota government accountable for all fraud, waste, and abuse.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Sounds like you've got good experience behind you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye now. I don't know why I say bye now.
Hey, this is Paul Gazelka. I'm the candidate for governor. Some of you know that I was leader of the Senate the last 5 years for the Republicans. We were the only ones standing in the gap against Tim Walz and all the Democrat onslaught in so many areas. So why am I running for governor? Because we need to take our state back. You think about all of the different areas that have just gone off the rails, whether it's public safety and crime at all-time highs in Minneapolis and St. Paul, whether it's the education our kids are not getting and the frustration that parents have that they're not teaching them math and science, they're teaching them indoctrination and sex education that they disagree with for kids 1st through 3rd grade. So many areas that we have gotten off the track. So I'm running to take our state back. We need massive tax cuts. We're in the top 5 tax states in the whole country. And how about we get out of the top 10? So many, many, many things that we need to do. I point the problems to Tim Walz and the Democrats. Time for Republicans to have governor, House, and Senate, which we haven't had in 55 years. So I want to lead the charge. I'm the one that held the line. I was in the trenches stopping all of their progressive agenda. Now I want to be the guy that leads the charge to take our state back. So I'm Paul Gazelka.
Paul, what is your background?
So my background, I am an insurance agent my whole life. I graduated from high school in Virginia, Minnesota. I worked at Mintac but while I went to college. But then by age 23, I started my first insurance agency. I became an agent, a manager, and an executive. For the last couple of decades, having my own insurance agency again, even now. But I was asked to run for legislature a little over a dozen years ago, and that's how I got into this, serving the state by being a legislator.
You talked about being raised up on the range. What's your opinion of the mining industry and how it's been so controlled the last, two governors?
17 years.
Two governors, yeah.
So I worked at Mintac in the mines, and my family, much of them still live up on the Iron Range, and all of the people that have been there for any length of time support mining, whether it's taconite mining or whether it's the new mining for precious metals. Polymet or twin metals are the two mines. We absolutely should be mining them here in Minnesota. Far safer to do it here. It's a national security issue that we have these resources. It's going to be safer here. We're going to provide jobs here, and so I've always been promoting it, always will, whether it's taconite or copper nickel mining. I'll tell you, the last commissioner of the MPCA, we forced out because one of the issues she did was she was suing the taconite industry, and so enough of that. Mining is part of Northeast Minnesota. We should have mining.
It's part of the world. I mean, the mining industry is what helped make America great in the long run when you figure out where the minerals came from.
Well, if you think about mining and copper, nickel, and cobalt and the resources that are up there, we need them for electric cars if people decide they want to have that. We need them for cell phones. We need them for the future direction that we're going. And to think that we need to rely on some other foreign nation that not necessarily is our friend is a huge mistake. Same thing with oil and natural gas. Why are we not having Keystone Pipeline? Why are we not using those resources here in America, creating jobs in America, lowering the price of fuel? It just, to me, it's common sense, but the Democrats are going the exact opposite direction.
I can't help but agree with you completely. Let's talk about taxes in Minnesota. It's my understanding that we have, 9 billion, 10 billion? How many billion surplus do we have in an economy that had to be shut down part-time during Walz's administration?
So we have a surplus in Minnesota. It's about $9 billion. In addition, there's another $3 billion that we put in reserves. Those reserves should stay there. If there's ever a recession, that's what you cushion it so you don't have to raise taxes. But the $9 billion, part of it's there because I wouldn't spend it all last year. I refused to spend it. I wanted to give it back to the taxpayer. And it's a result primarily of all the huge excessive spending that the federal government did, putting all that money into the economy, money we don't have. That's why we have 8% inflation, because they were irresponsible. That's Biden was irresponsible spending the money. So we do have this surplus. So what should we do with it? Well, give it back. Tim Walz and the Democrats want to spend it. We want to give it back. The first thing we should do is get rid of the tax on Social Security income. I've been working on that for the last 3 years. You think it's a good idea?
I like that. I just paid my tax back to the state of Minnesota, and now we're on Social Security.
Yeah. So get rid of the tax on Social Security income. We're one of about a dozen states. People are leaving our state because of that tax. And then lower the income tax rates. We can lower those. Minnesota is in the top 5 of tax states. We need to get out of the top 10, and I know how to get us there.
Well, I appreciate your time and I appreciate your running. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Natalie Selesnikar, and I'm running for the House of Representatives in 3B. I have raised my kids in Hermantown, and they attended public schools there, and I've lived in the area for 30 years, and I am proud to serve the citizens of northeastern Minnesota. So I decided to run for office because I have built a business. I have ran assisted livings for 30 years in northeastern Minnesota and across Minnesota from Hinckley above, which is, I always say, the best part of the state. So I have built assisted livings and been a nursing home administrator for 30 years. And the last 2 years have been a really extraordinary challenge for everyone. I watched families holding hands at windows. I had a Catholic funeral in the parking lot. I had fish houses outside of windows so families could be together. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for all of us. It was heartbreaking to not be with people at the hospital when they were dying. I don't want to ever see that happen again for people. I am all about health freedom. I'm all about having people in the hospitals have people with them. I want our aging seniors, the people that built this country, that gave me the opportunities I've had, to have people with them in the last days of their life. I don't want it ever to happen again. As a business, I think we need to bring jobs to Minnesota. We are overtaxed. As a business owner, I saw what the taxation model does for people. I want to see my kids stay in Minnesota, my future grandchildren be a part of the state. I don't want to see people leaving our state. We're Minnesota nice, but we have to have Minnesota values. And I'm running because I'm seeing our values being just chopped, like the cord of wood we did at the farm. And they're one by one going away, and it has to end. So I'm running against somebody who's been in office for 46 years, and quite frankly, 46 years is, I was 10 when she joined the House of Representatives, and I'm clearly not 10 anymore. So I think it's time. Everybody has to pass the baton, and as Kenny Rogers said, you got to know when to fold them. And right now it's time. It's time for northeastern Minnesota to have a new face, to have new ideas, to fight for family values, to be pro-mining, tourism. And our parents are our best educators for our kids. We have to allow parents to not be called domestic terrorists if they want to be involved at a school board level. To be involved is a good thing. They are the best advocates, always have been, for their child. And I'm pro-family. I want to make sure that people get a choice on if they're getting vaccinated. If it's the best thing for you, it's between you and your doctor. It always has been. I believe in that. I believe in health care and child care, making sure that we have great schools for our kids and great values to raise Minnesotans in the way that I had the opportunity to grow up in and have the opportunities I've had.
So, would you explain the district, what's the number, and then do you know what it covers?
The district is a large region. It was redistricted recently, and it spans all the way to Two Harbors, and then it goes across the Lakewood Township, and it goes up to Pequam, and it goes up to Alden area, and then it goes up to the edge of Hoyt Lakes. It drops down by Whiteface Reservoir Lake, Island Lake area, Friedenberg Township. It comes down into Kenosha, Rice Lake Township, in the Midway Township, where 53 heads up to Virginia and Orr. It goes down that way, and then it comes into Hermantown, the city of Hermantown, the city of Proctor, and it goes into Midway Township also. So we have a lot of townships. We have cities also. We have rural country areas, and then we have a lot of tourism and a lot of job opportunities for people. A lot of business people are living up in northeastern Minnesota, creating jobs. We have universities up in northeastern Minnesota. We have all the opportunity to have northeastern Minnesota thrive, as it should. And we have all the resources ready to go. So I'm a person that likes to get things done. When I see a need, I step in. I had breast cancer, and when things didn't go well and my surgeries went poor, I wrote a book about it to try to help people. And when I saw the country in the situation it's in right now, where we have high taxes, we have fuel costs that are going through the roof, it's affecting all ages. everybody. And it doesn't have to be this way. It wasn't this way before. We have the ability to have energy and independence, to have a northeastern Minnesota that's strong and prosperous, to bring businesses to our area and be innovative. So that's why I'm running. I wasn't planning on running for House of Representatives, but service is something we're called to do, and we all have an opportunity to serve in a different way. I've been a mom, I've been a wife for almost 30 years. I grew up on a farm. I had a dad that was a principal and a superintendent. My mom was a school bus driver. My in-laws were social service director and nurse. And I've been a nursing home administrator for 30 years, caring for seniors and families and employees in this whole area for a long time. And now I want to serve northeastern Minnesota in a different way because they're being affected. And I want to help at a policy level.
You know, one township you failed to mention, and I didn't look at the redistricting, is Normanna, where I live.
Yes.
And we are still,
yes,
we're still in that district.
Yes,
Good.
Normanna is. Yes.
Good to hear that.
I had to remember
Yeah.
them all, but Normanna,
You know,
I know
you've got
exactly
quite a
where
list.
Normanna is. Our cabin where our kids grew up was up on the little Cloquet River, and you go through Normanna Township to go there. So yes, it is.
Oh, good. Well,
Absolutely.
I have not been paying any attention to it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
very
thank
much
you
for
for
your
having
time,
me.
and
Yes.
I hope to be talking to you again soon.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. What would you like to tell us, Kendall?
Hi, Kendall Qualls here. We're here at Colton County Fairgrounds. Great stop that we've had all across the state. The momentum is building for us as we get ready to go into the state convention, and people love to hear, the story that we have, the message that we have. We're the right messenger with the right message, and we're going to just focus on those things that matter to people. Number one, we have to make sure that we get our Twin Cities back to normal. Right now, we've seen record crime, the worst we've ever seen in our lifetime. We're going to fix that in 18 months. Number two, we have people leaving our state in record numbers. We have one of the highest tax states in the country, and we're going to reverse that. We're going to make it where we're more competitive in the region. We're going to keep our young people here and get things back to normal. That's why we need someone from the outside. We need a private sector leader with private sector solutions around our tax code. And then lastly, I think all of us are really getting tired of getting bullied by the woke left. This idea of cancel culture was never a part of the American culture. We're going to get rid of that day one. And when we think about what's being taught in our schools, our parents need to be empowered to make the best decisions for their own children. And we're going to do that by offering school choice. So that means wherever the student goes, the funding goes with that student. And lastly, election integrity, election security, we need to make sure we do that. And oftentimes they'll wave the banner of racism when we talk about election security. And I tell people this, having lived through the Jim Crow South, segregated South, my parents and grandparents would have loved to have grown up in the America I grew up in. This is the least racist time in American history. We're the least racist country in the world. The only reason why it sounds so odd is because we always hear the opposite from the left and from the media. But the facts are facts. This is still the greatest country on earth for anyone, regardless of race and regardless of your station in life. America is the place to be. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to protect it and make sure that we keep America the way it is for generations to come. Thank you.
Kendall, I've read your bio, and I would like you to share just a little bit of how you grew up and what you have in your background to qualify you to be the governor of the state of Minnesota.
Well, it's interesting. I tell people that I shouldn't even be here today. The odds are that a kid from a broken family that lived part of his life in the inner city housing projects of New York City, and then later with his father in Oklahoma in a trailer park, wouldn't graduate from high school, wouldn't go to college, wouldn't become an Army officer, raised 5 kids with his wife for 36 years, and by the way, actually become a vice president of a major corporation, and the whole time being a lifelong Republican. They'll tell you that idea doesn't even work anymore. That's the idea of the American dream. And what I want to focus on is ensuring that idea of the American dream stays here and it stays for generations. It's available for generations because we have a left, a radical left actually, that wants to actually do away with it. They just want to demolish it and actually have all things come through the government funnel. And Tim Walz is a part of that radical left. He's part of that group. And that's why we need a change of leadership.
Also, Tim, I'd like you to speak specifically to the young people about getting a good education and going after your dream.
You know, one of the great things about our country is that success can come in many different pathways. The idea, though, is that I tell people that I had no idea I could be successful in this country without my master's degrees. I actually have 3 graduate degrees. I tell people once I finished the third one, I realized that I already had a PhD. I would have been successful in this country. And they asked me, well, Kendall, what do you mean a PhD? I'll say, well, look, I was poor, hungry, and determined. Okay. Yes, we need education, but 75% is that fire in the belly, wanting to do something better in life. That's 75% of what you need. The other 25%, it is an education. It could be college, it could be the trades, and the trades is not plan B. It could be a good route for people because we need much more of the trades than we ever have. Or whatever that type of training that you need. This country is still a place of dreams and opportunity for anyone. I can tell you, especially, it's like I share with my kids, you could potentially be working for a company that didn't exist 10 years ago, okay? Or you could be one of those guys that starts one of those companies that never existed 10 years ago and just be a wealth of opportunity for not only yourself, but the employees that you wind up hiring.
Well, thank you very much for running, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a country to save, starting right here in Minnesota. Thank you.
Great. Captain Fight.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scott Jensen, and I'm running to be the next governor of Minnesota. I'm a sleepy eye kid, middle child of 5, sleepy eyes in the southern part of the state. We sort of have a similar situation to the northern part of the state. In the sleepy eye area, we want to make sure that farmers get to farm. And in the northern part of the state, they want to make sure miners get to mine. And I agree with that. The idea that one area of the state might determine what kind of economy another area has makes no sense at all. So let's just remember some simple things. Miners get to mine, farmers get to farm, teachers get to teach. I think the reason my wife and I are involved is probably the words of Esther 4:14. Have you considered you're in the position you're in for such a time as this? And I think there's an awful lot of Minnesotans who are saying the same thing. We're acknowledging that this is no time to stand on the sidelines. If we've been complacent in the past, shame on us, but we're done with that. We're getting into the arena, we're going to get bruised and bloodied, but by George, we're going to stand up for America. America is in the middle of a cultural war. It really is good versus evil. I'm struck by the number of people that seem to be nothing more than just haters. They hate America. They don't know what they like. They don't know where they want to go. They just hate. This is not a part of the America I grew up in. We're not perfect, but we are the greatest country on the face of the earth. Countries across the planet rely on us to be the beacon of freedom, and in many ways, we have let them down. Over the last year and a half, we've learned a valuable lesson. Who do you want at the helm of America? Do you want a strong leader who may at times put his foot in his mouth? Or do you want someone who's not able to do the job? We learned a painful lesson. I'm running because I think that our team can win. We've been blessed with 20,000 different people donating to our campaign, and we've shattered all fundraising records. We have had 100,000 people sign up on our email team. We have 500,000 people that follow us every day on social media. When I'm elected governor, in the first 100 days, I am going to pass rewriting the emergency powers. Rewriting the emergency powers will be the number one. But the second one will be student choice, voter ID, stand your ground bill, constitutional carry, and Castle Doctrine. We need to be able to protect ourselves wherever we are without demonstrating that we tried to retreat. We can go ahead take care of business, and protect ourselves and our loved ones. That's what happens in the first 100 days. Minnesota is on a path that's going to lead to absolute destruction unless we change it quickly. The leftist agenda is so over the top that I think most of us are stunned at how quickly this turnabout has happened in Minnesota. The COVID policies have brought about the turning upside down of too many lives, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. My name is Scott Jensen, and I appreciate your support.
Scott, what qualifies you to run for governor?
I served one term in the Senate, and that gave me a chance to see the brokenness. I also said I'm done. I had no idea that COVID was going to hit. COVID brought me back into the fold, pushed me to the front of the line, and I've been a prominent contrarian. I've been on the Laura Ingraham show a couple dozen times, and Tucker Carlson and Rush Limbaugh. I think that gives me a certain expertise in the area of COVID. But I've also been on public school boards for 10 years, and I chaired the school board for 3 years. I started medical clinics times 2. I think I've had 2 clinics started. I've been a family doctor for 40 years. I've started restaurants. I've been on bank boards. I've hired hundreds of employees. I've been president of chambers of commerce and Lions clubs. I think that I've had a chance to live such a full life, and I'm not looking for a new career path. I'm a family doctor looking to get elected, do some good work, and then get back to my patients.
Scott, I know as a home-educated mother, our public indoctrination system, education, has done a lot to disingenuine our young people from this great country that we've been allowed to be born in. God put us in the right country. What's your opinion? Well, you were on a school board. You must have seen. I filmed a school board here in Duluth, not in Barnum, I mean in the Duluth area for 10, 12 years. What a waste of money and resources. What's your opinion on the direction of the education system?
Which is, in a word, frankly wrong. I mean, critical race theory needs to be banned, to be sure, but we need to go deeper than that. What happened here? What happened was we saw a small group of people shift our education system from a foundational education to literally a systematic indoctrination that resembles more of a George Orwell book than it does real education. But we should have seen this coming before. When I was on the school board, we saw profiles of learning, Common Core, No Child Left Behind, all these flowery names. And then we got complacent. Critical race theory should be the thing that tells us never again will we let this happen. When America said we want every citizen educated at some level, that wasn't some feel-good decision. That was a decision to make us as strong a nation as we could be. If everybody can read and write and do some basic math, that makes us stronger. And that's not what's happening. Our education system is failing us, and that's why the money needs to follow the kid, not a broken institution.
I agree. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and best of luck to you.
Thanks so much for doing this. Have a good day.
You too.
Hi, I'm Jason Rarick. I'm the state senator for Senate District 11. That's Pine County, Carleton County, eastern half of Kennebec, and a little bit of St. Louis. I've served in the legislature for 8 years now, 4 in the House of Representatives and 4 in the Senate. I come from the Pine City Hinckley area, graduated from Pine City High School in 1988, went to Dunwoody Institute. I'm an electrician outside of the legislature. Spent a lot of time coaching my son's youth sports teams and on a school board for a Catholic school in Pine City, all of which led me to end up running for the House of Representatives back in 2015. I still work as an electrician. I'm a self-employed electrical contractor through the summer months. Focus a lot of my attention in the legislature in the jobs area and the energy area, and now this year have taken on a bigger role in the higher education area as well. So I'm running again for Senate and looking forward to.
So Jeff, you are basically explaining omnibus bills, and I would like you to tell on camera what you were telling me earlier. So if you would go over what those are.
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk. I get a lot of questions about the omnibus bills. And an omnibus bill is a bill that brings a lot of different bills into one larger bill. And what the Constitution says in Minnesota is that they should be one subject. So if we use higher education as the example, if we determine that our budget is, say, $500 million for higher education, we can bring together a bunch of different bills in the higher education area to build that budget to say how we're going to spend the money. What is wrong, according to the Constitution, is that when we combine other issue areas if we bring in jobs and energy, or if we bring in state government to be included with higher education. And so there are a group of us legislators who are really pushing back and trying to end that practice at the Capitol. We were successful this last year. We got higher education pulled out of the jobs and energy bill. We unfortunately didn't get all of the bills taken apart, but it is something we're going to definitely work on for next year. We're building a coalition to make sure our leadership always knows single issue bills.
Okay, so a question I like to ask is, education has taken a turn for the worse. We have young people to prove it. I have two granddaughters in the Coon Rapids School District that couldn't read and had to take remedial reading, and the parents had to pay for summer school to the same teacher that flunked them out. There's something wrong with this whole scenario. When kids are having difficulty reading, they're coming out with a diploma paper, but you've got business owners saying they cannot read, they cannot write. What you're talking about education, so what are some of the ideas you would have?
This is an
change
interesting
it?
one, yeah. Education is not a committee I serve on, it's outside of my area, but I have a number of people that I look to and get information from, and Roger Chamberlain has exposed something this last year that was very, very interesting. A number of years ago, the legislature put in place that in order to become a teacher, you have to get the training to teach kids how to read. Seems pretty simple, common sense. What we're finding out is our colleges are not doing that. And there's one specific program, it's called Letters, and I can't remember what it stands for, but it does a great job of teaching people how to pass on the skill of reading. And so in Senator Chamberlain's bill this year for education, that is strictly what it focused on. No new money for schools, no other programs, but it is focused on getting teachers into this Letters program so that they can help our kids learn how to read. Every other subject that you learn relies on your ability to read. So that has to be our number one focus. And I believe this program will help get us there. And we also have to, get to our colleges that are training and handing out, the certificates to become a teacher, that they incorporate this into their programs for teachers. Because without that, we are going to continue down this road. It is terrible when you see the statistics, and with the school shutdowns, it just got worse. The other thing I'm going to say about that nobody wants to talk about, what's so important for a child's education is the support they get at home. If they're not getting support at home, I don't care who the teacher is, what school they're going to, if they're not getting that background idea of how important your education is at home, it will never translate to the school and they will never learn anything there. We have to help our parents understand to pass that message on to their children that school is important.
I can't agree more. I home educated for 20 years. My kids are competent in all the skills and they're doing fine. Business owners. Okay, the last elections, I think we can fairly say that they were rigged. The people that ran were not honestly elected for those that got into office, and those that didn't get into office were shortchanged. What is your opinion on going forward with the elections?
So, to me, the biggest thing that happened, Minnesota and nationwide, they used COVID as their ability to extend the election with all the mail-in balloting, and they sent their army out door to door, knocking and getting people to vote. And we can't prove it, but they were there helping people fill their ballots out that had their ballots mailed home. Eric Lucero, a state representative, and a few others filed a lawsuit against Steve Simon's office, and they won. So they will not be able to do that same thing in Minnesota in this next election. What we have to keep an eye on, though, is what is their next tactic going to be? How are they going to try to get out to not only harvest ballots that maybe wouldn't be cast, but to influence the people on how they're going to vote when they get that ballot. They come up with all kinds of ideas, and we have to be vigilant, we have to watch and make sure we're there and ready to cut that off when we see it happening. And then if we can be successful in this election, and the governor's office and the attorney general's office are absolutely critical, so that we can end those practices. We can pass the legislation, the reform needed, and then we'll have an officer in the Attorney General's office who will enforce the laws and bring someone to justice who breaks the election laws.
Well, and the Secretary of State's office is absolutely crucial as well,
yes,
because that's where the voter fraud is. Steve Simon is just allowing to continue.
Correct. He broke state law with how he allowed the elections to be done last time. The Constitution specifically states the legislature passes the laws, and then it's the Secretary of State's office that has to run the elections according to those laws, and that's not what he did this last time around. We won the court case, but the election still stands. It doesn't go back and negate the election. So we need to make sure we also have a Secretary of State who will follow the laws and administer the elections the way they're supposed to be.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best in your re-election.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Johner Byrne, and I'm running to be your next Minnesota Secretary of State. I'm a blue-collar kid from South St. Paul, and I grew up with a mom and a dad that were hardworking and absolutely instilled those values in me. I am married to my husband John for almost 25 years, and he is a brand new U.S. citizen, and I'm so proud of that. He was a permanent resident all these years, rose to the level of captain of our fire department, and he's a corporate chef, so I benefit from great food all of the time. I'm a wife, a mother, a small business owner. I've worked in the corporate world, and I'm running to be your next Secretary of State because I believe that our elections should be free, fair, and transparent. I want to take the questions out of elections. I'm Kelly Johner Byrne, and I would be proud to be your next Minnesota Secretary of State.
So you run a business. Tell us a little bit about that, which would help you in your Secretary of State's position.
I help small businesses make more money. I've been a coach and consultant for almost 31 years, a speaker and a 2-time author. I also have a .com business that I've had for 18 years. I've worked over these last many years with entrepreneurs to help them make more money and to grow their businesses. We've worked with people that have a podcast, want to be better podcasters. We've helped people write their books and become published authors. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. In our .com business we've had for 18 years, we are an online store. But more importantly, what I think is important is that people learn how to build great relationships, because when you build good relationships, you can build a great business.
So, okay, we've had a problem with elections for the last, more than one. So, what is your solution to the problem that we faced majorly in the 2020 elections?
What we absolutely have to have is transparency. We need to have a Secretary of State that will follow the law and not try to make the law. So our current Secretary of State went around the legislature, circumvented the legislature, entered into a consent decree. It was a behind closed doors consent decree, and I have a problem. The Secretary of State knew that the judge that they went ahead of, or in front of, was Amy Klobuchar's political director. The judge was Sarah Gruing. And so I have a challenge with that. We have got partisan judges, and that is a challenge. We need to uphold the law, and I really believe that if you need an ID to pick up your child from daycare or to pick up a prescription or get your concert tickets, or for that matter, if you need a photo ID to be a vendor at the DFL Minnesota Convention, or you need a photo ID to be a delegate at the Minnesota DFL Convention, why wouldn't you need a photo ID to vote in a Minnesota election? I think it seems really, really simple. We have about 4.4 million driver's license out there. When you take out the 16 and 17-year-olds and those that are permanent residents or that are not actually eligible voters, you bring it down to about 3.8. There's about 3.5 million voters. I don't see what the problem is, and I think that it's really more of an excuse, and it's an assault on the integrity of Minnesotans that they cannot afford a driver's license or that they cannot get one. What I find is it's oppressive not to identify yourself as to who you are. So it's just such a simple thing. We need to get this one across the finish line.
I've been an election judge for about 50 years, and people have moved over from Wisconsin where they have to have a voter ID to vote. And they pull out their ID, and I say, that's okay, you're on the voter roll, you don't need it, and they are absolutely appalled. I've heard the arguments against having a ID, or you're disingenuing this level of age or this person or that person. Speak to that.
Well, number one, Minnesota law states quite clearly what constitutes an eligible voter, and it's very simple that even my 15-year-old son could read it. You need to be 18 years old, you need to have lived in Minnesota for a period of time, and you need to be a U.S. citizen. It's very, very simple. And so if you're coming here with a Wisconsin driver's license, you probably live in Wisconsin, you probably shouldn't be voting. I think that, as an election judge, conspiracy theories start when rumors start or when people feel that there isn't transparency. That's in everything, not just in elections. It's very important that we have a free, fair, and transparent election. One vote for one U.S. citizen that is an eligible voter. If you're not eligible to vote, don't vote. It is just that simple. And when Minnesotans feel that elections are fair, we won't have this problem. But we can't have elected officials that are going above and beyond what their call of office or the duty of the office is. And that is where we have a problem. And that is why there is distrust in our elections.
Well, this woman that came from Wisconsin had moved to Duluth area. And so she was now on the roster, so she was eligible.